So what's the deal with Robert De Niro? Over the last few months, we've seen the acclaimed actor make an unexpected foray into the political sphere, taking cheap shots at Donald Trump left and right, but his latest interview on MSNBC perhaps went so far that even Elon Musk had to come out and give Robert a more grounded reality check. And why? Well, take a look for yourself and you'll see the outlandish comparisons he's making between modern America and Germany of the 1940s.
We always hear about people from Eastern Europe, the Jews from other parts of Eastern Europe, from Western Europe, coming over. Look what happened in France with the Nazis and so on. And they come over, and you hear these, and when I was a kid, they'd say, "You don't really appreciate this country. You don't really appreciate what we know from experience." Imagine what those people went through. I'm just starting to see it. As a kid, I said, it's a nightmare that never would happen. But now I see that it's possible. And what those people, and sometimes I run into some people who are close to my age who are from Eastern European countries or even Nazi Germany, and you understand it.
Isn't that a perfect example of what's wrong with the modern political discourse? Apparently, Robert De Niro can level a hefty charge against someone like Donald Trump by likening him to the leader of the Third Reich and just moving on without saying how. Donald Trump is many things, and not all of them are good, but in the political sphere, where you can throw around a label like that so flippantly means you're denuding of any weight of meaning for the future. Like the boy who cried wolf, the charge of being a genocidal maniac like the one we've seen in Germany nearly a century ago will lose all its meaning if we see an actual rise of an authoritarian tyrant, and perhaps that's why Elon Musk couldn't hold back from responding even though he's not enough of a fan of Trump to come for his defense, and he wrote on X, quote, "Well, Trump was actually already president for 4 years, and his policies bore no resemblance to those of the German dictators, so this makes no sense. In fact, with an Abraham Accords, he made some progress towards peace in the Middle East, which was definitely not high on the German dictator agenda. Donald Trump's thin skin can often lead to a fiery rhetoric that we see from him, but perhaps his presidency revealed how there's a distance between Trump's rhetoric and policy. By the way, do consider subscribing to the channel for more important discussions like this. Now, maybe in the context, I think the Abraham Accords were an unprecedented geopolitical effort for peace in the Middle East negotiated by the Trump administration that no one seems to give him the least bit of credit for. And what we see is mostly a barrage of empty insults like this rather than sustained critique.
Does it give you some sense, not of joy, but of relief at least, that he's potentially facing some consequences? Because as you've said before, this guy's a con artist and he's gotten away with it for years.
No, he's more than that to me. He's sick. He is really, genuinely a sick person that somehow has been allowed into our system. And I'm tired of calling him names. He just can't be anywhere near the office of the presidency.
Allowed into our system, say what you want about Trump, but the millions of people that voted for the man are still a reality that need to be contended with. Now, let me give you a useful rule of thumb. When there's too many people on the stand for an idea or person that don't assume there's something you're not seeing, instead of dismissing all of them, if a rhetorical firebrand like Donald Trump with some arguably divisive ideas even saw the kind of rise that he did, it's his dictators that need to introspect why they left the space open for him in the first place. When people are angry, confused, or feel like they're not being heard, that's when they turn into strongman leaders, even if they go overboard at times. That's exactly what money does as well, by flowing to stronger assets in time of crisis. To make sure you have the shelter of precious metals with the help of Birch Gold, just click the link in the description or text the word FFIRA to 989898 to get started. Now, I think in that sense, even if you agree with what Robert De Niro just said there, the antidote to Trump isn't to demonize all his voters and supporters, but to offer them a better and more viable alternative after hearing them out and making them part of the conversation. That's not really something that fits well with the political culture in modern Hollywood, and that's why it was surprising to hear Robert say this next.
Do you have any concerns for the future of the arts if he were to become president? He has already said he wants to go after his enemies. He wants to go after journalists and the news media. Mm-hmm. What about your industry?
I believe he will. The only thing that I would think is that what'll happen is that he'll go after these things like he always impulsively, and he'll be stopped. There'll be pushback, a lot of it, and there might be as much pushback as needed, like in the streets, conflict that could happen, civil strife, because but he will try it.
You have no upside in having this conversation, in speaking out against Donald Trump. You are making yourself a target. the interview will air and he will immediately find a reason to talk bad about you in public.
Yeah.
That's such a typical ploy used by celebrities to make themselves feel like a more important voice than they really are by making it out as if they're putting their careers on the line to speak their truth that no one supposedly is brave enough to say. But the fact is, everyone knows the massive anti-Trump bent in Hollywood and the MSM, and if anything, it only adds to your social brownie points to criticize or call out Donald Trump in the industry. If you want evidence for that, there's no more perfect example than when Robert De Niro literally came out to an award show and started his speech by saying F Trump for no apparent reason, and what do you get in return? A standing ovation from a packed crowd of Hollywood elites.
Robert De Niro.
I'm going to say one thing. Trump.
This was one clip where even Donald Trump had to finally respond. He wrote on X, formerly Twitter, during his presidency back in 2018. And I quote, Robert De Niro, a very low IQ individual, has received too many shots in the head as real boxers in movies. I watched him last night and truly believe he may be punch drunk. I guess he doesn't realize the economy is the best it's ever been, with employment being at an all-time high and many companies pouring back into our country. Wake up, Punchy. And yet, much like that award show, Robert De Niro seems to have found his obsession with Donald Trump manifest in ill-timed rants, which is exactly what we saw when he made an appearance on The View and went into a frenzy that forced the show's producers to beep several sections.
If he gets elected, it's going to change this country for everybody. And they might think that it's going to make their life better, or they just want to, excuse my French, literally. Those people who support him with anger and hate, because that's what he's about. He's done everything. What more do you need? It's almost like he wants to do the worst that he could possibly do to show this country. His slogan.
It's not a good look when your dislike of a political candidate comes from a more emotional place rather than rational. It only ends with you not being taken seriously by the side you're criticizing and being used as fodder by the side you're supposedly helping. Being there's 100 things to pick apart in Donald Trump's rhetoric and policy positions, but just like it's never a good idea to be lost in a worship of political figures, it's equally not a good look to constantly revile someone to the point that it starts to become your claim to fame in the media. Perhaps Robert De Niro, as a massively respected actor in Hollywood, would be better off understanding where one line ends and the other begins.